Kendall, you going to record? Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here tonight for an incredible Zoom that we're so excited. We've been building up our excitement all week long when we found out that Mr. Sam Castor was going to be our special guest tonight, and of course, the sisters that we love so much. And guys, I just want to say thank you for being here tonight. What you're going to hear tonight will truly help you to know that we set ourselves apart from anybody else in our industry. I believe that 1,000%. And after this Zoom tonight, you will know exactly what we're talking about. So I am going to go now. We're going to go straight to Nikki. Nikki Tate, I thank you for being on, and you take it away.
Absolutely. Um, Everybody, I want to say hello. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on how my sister and I know Sam and what he's done in our life personally. So we've known him since we were teenagers, but then you fast forward to a company that he started years ago. And we had a need to be in that company and we wanted to learn about his product. So we got the book that his wife wrote. So Linda Castor wrote a book. The name is Undeniable Destiny. So somebody can write that in the chat. Undeniable Destiny by Linda Castor. And we read this book and it changed our perspective. So I want everyone to understand tonight that we are meeting Sam Castor, the man, Sam Castor, the husband, the father, and also somebody that has been a mentor and a guide in the trajectory of Misty and I's lives. So when you read Undeniable Destiny and you see that these people stand on the word of God, they have a relationship with the Lord that I or Misty, we didn't experience that. We grew up very strict religion. And so when we started to expand and see that there were things that people really had relationships with the Lord. So not only financially, not only health, but spiritually, this has been a journey. And so Sam, we wanted to tell you hello and thank you and Linda for that.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Absolutely. And then my first question, we'll kind of do this interview style, but can
Sure.
you tell us about the term glyconutrient and why is that important today? I remember way back, we would all tell a story about when they started dehusking the wheat, right?
Mhm.
And nobody realizes that I did a little bit of Google, bran, and the outer layer was removed. With that, fiber, B vitamins. So Sam, you bring us into glyconutrients and why there's such a need for them.
Okay, well, back in the 1990s, a new science came out of the ability to look closer and closer at the human cell. And what they found on the surface of the cell, it looked like a forest. There's all these structures sticking off the surface of the cell, and it turned out they're called glycoproteins. Glyco is the Greek word for sugar. So it's these sugars linked together on a protein. And it launched a new science called glycobiology, which is to study the biological function of these sugar messages. And what we learned through glycobiology is that all biological data is transferred through these structures. So it's how cells talk to each other. It's how cells communicate with the immune system. So the way the immune system works, there's a master surveiller, if you will. It's called a macrophage. It's a large white blood cell. And it just has receptor sites and it goes around touching cells, these glycoprotein structures, and it says, are you me? Are you okay? Are you me and do you need help? Do you need nourishment? Do you need, are you sick? Are you diseased? Whatever the situation is, it locks on, sends that message to other immune cells, and it comes back and repairs. The third question is, are you not me? Do you not belong here? And for instance, that's the core of autoimmunity. Autoimmune means your immune system attacks you. Well, why would it attack you if it can distinguish you from foreigners? And what glycobiologists came to the conclusion of is that the sugars that make up this alphabet that create these glycoprotein structures are absolutely essential for proper cell-to-cell communication and communication with the immune system. And when those sugars are deficient in your diet, it doesn't take a lot, it just takes some, then it puts a lot of pressure on the liver to convert glucose into some of these other sugars. It takes time and energy. And if you're under stress, if you're already sick, if you're taking pharmaceutical drugs, if you're not eating right, if you're not eating, all those things inhibit that production. And so what ends up happening is it's not a faulty immune system, it's just a miscommunication. In other words, the immune cells lose the ability to distinguish self from non-self. And there's one particular sugar that, if it's missing, is the most common biomarker in autoimmune disorders. And so we saw that science coming about in the 1990s, and it showed the 8 sugars that are necessary for glycoprotein synthesis. And so we were the first company to recognize the value of that. We went out and found plant sources of those sugars, put them into a composition, and filed a patent on that composition. It's called a composition of matter patent, and actually pioneered the new science of nutritional glycobiology. And what happens when you take that is you nourish your cells with the sugars that are necessary for proper structure function, and then that brings immunity back in, brings proper structure to your cells, and you just start hearing one result after the next.
So therefore, glyconutrient is this sugar nutrition that we're feeding our body.
Yeah, we invented the word glyconutrient, and we invented it because when you say sugar, people immediately jump to the conclusion that it's sucrose, it's bad. Glucose, it doesn't belong. You don't want to eat any of that. But these sugars don't cause a glucose response in your body. They work completely different. They're typically in the form of polysaccharides. So poly means many, saccharide is sugar, so a long chain. It's like fiber. But if you find fiber that contains these 8 sugars, then your body can ferment those fibers in the gut, make friendly bacteria, short chain fatty acids, and then throw off those individual sugars, which then go to your cells and allow them to become glycoproteins.
And communicate well.
And communicate well.
Okay, my next question, I know a lot of our friends on here will be interested in. Can you explain to us how your relationship with Marketplace Global came into being? Maybe just a quick overview.
Sure. Well, I started my wife and I, Linda, started a not-for-profit ministry called Manna Relief. And one of the sugars in the glyconutrient blend is called mannose, and it's found in the aloe vera plant in a molecule called Acemannan, which is another patented ingredient that you have to stabilize it in order to keep it intact. And we found that providing that polysaccharide, which is an acetylated beta-mannan, this Acemannan, has such a dynamic effect on children's health and their immune systems that we wanted to provide the Acemannan to medically fragile children all over the world. So we launched the Manna Relief in 1999 is when we incorporated. And so, my job is to go out and find ways of raising money to provide Acemannan to medically fragile children. We have donated over 300 million daily servings to kids in over 90 countries, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. About 7 million children a year die of immune deficiency related issues caused by things like malnutrition. People think kids are starving to death. That's not the case. It's just that when they're malnourished, their immune systems become compromised and they become highly susceptible to chronic and infectious disease. That's what they die of. And so by turning their immune systems back on, we're able to give quality of life to kids that without our intervention would have no hope at all. And so, I, for the first 20 years of that foundation, I just went out and raised money like every other charity. I tell people I'd never been in the not-for-profit business before, Took me about 30 days to figure out it's full-time begging, part-time work because nothing happens unless you're raising money. And then I developed distribution partners around the world to help me distribute. My distribution partner in Mexico is former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, and his wife, Marta. And I was talking to the Foxes one day about the unsustainability of fundraising. You have good months and bad months and good weeks and bad weeks. And it just goes all over the place. And so sometimes you can donate, like they've fed as many as 35, 40,000 children a day in Mexico. And sometime I'd have to cut their donation in half just because of the poor fundraising. Glitch in the economy, you lose half your donor base overnight, and then you got to start all over again. Anyway, President Fox said, I want to introduce you to a new way of raising money for your company. It's called social entrepreneurship. And I'm hosting the first international symposium this summer. You need to come see what it's all about. Co-host of that meeting was a man named Muhammad Yunus, who's accredited for creating the concept of social entrepreneurship. He started the Grameen Bank and created a micro loan concept that is now the number one strategy for fighting global poverty. So he used a for-profit bank to solve a societal problem, which was poverty. And so I went to that, and someone from Stanford was there, their business school, and they did a presentation on what is best practice. And best practice within the social entrepreneur model is called buy one, give one. And it's really effective for a couple of reasons. Number one, it connects your consumer directly with your cause. They purchase a dietary supplement to benefit their own health, and at the same time, they're helping a child in need. So that's really good. Secondly, we find that the consumer has as big a need for immune support in today's world than a medically fragile child in Africa. I mean, you don't have to go to Africa to find people who are really, really sick. And in this country, we've created what's called a sick care industry, and it's very ineffective and unsustainably expensive. And so anyway, once I discovered the social entrepreneur model, I decided that with Manna Relief, I would link up with companies that wanted our proprietary technologies to help them, create unique products in the market. And that every time they sold that product, they would make a donation to Manna Relief. And so I was introduced to MPG. They had a desire to make a new version of glyconutrients with an upgraded Acemannan technology that I had the exclusive rights to. And they were willing to donate to Manna Relief. And so that's the formula. It worked. And that's how I got introduced.
Right. So our company, Marketplace Global, agreed 1-to-1. Every bag sold or purchased, a bag gets given to a child in need through Manna Relief.
Yeah. So for instance, if there's 30 servings in a bag, there's 30. What I do is I take this Acemannan product and I put it into a powdered milk product that I call Mighty Milk. Because it's the best delivery system for getting it into children. Milk is the number one food commodity of children all over the world. Plus, milk has vitamins and minerals, it has healthy fats, and it has protein. And a lot of times these kids are nutritionally deficient. So I take the Acemannan and put it into Mighty Milk. So when a bag of varicella is purchased, 30-day supply, a child gets the 30-day supply of the Mighty Milk product.
And we all get to be a part of that. So we're very grateful for that. Okay, I just have a couple more questions and then I'm going to pass it to Misti. What, if any, part did you play in the formulation of the Viracell, the ingredients that Marketplace Global chose to, incorporate into this product?
Actually, I didn't have much to do with the formulation at all. The guys that had MPG already knew what they were looking for. I mean, the sugars are defined. They're in the science of glycobiology, and they knew the polysaccharides. I mean, you can find those pretty easily. So they had pretty much formulated what they wanted access to is our Acemannan. which is provides one of the sugars that's called mannose. But the other benefit of the Acemannan is it has such a profound immune response. So it not only provides a sugar for cell-to-cell communication, it actually optimizes the immune system's response to whatever an individual is dealing with. So you get an advanced immune support along with proper cell-to-cell communication. And so, I gave them access to the Acemannan that we had negotiated from the creator of the product, which he donated to us so that we could use it for buy one, give one partners. And so when they offered to donate, that made them eligible. And so, yeah.
Okay, you touched on it just quick, and this is my last question, and we'll pass it to Misty. Tell us how your Acemannan product is 4 times stronger, 3.5 to 4 times stronger than what we worked with 20 years ago.
Okay, so Acemannan is the polysaccharide from the aloe vera plant that is made up of a sugar called mannose. 96% of the sugars in this polysaccharide are mannose. That's what causes the immune response. So the polysaccharides in the gel itself come in a broad range of molecular weights. So they're short chain, medium chain, long chain polysaccharides. So the way that it actually works, its mechanism of action, is a large white blood cell called a macrophage.
Funny,
has
I checked that.
has the
The right
mannose
box.
has the mannose
The
receptor
box on the
site.
right about the
And the
monkey or
mannose receptor
weekly
site
thing.
is what binds to the Acemannan molecule. And when you activate the macrophage, then what you do is you optimize the immune system's response to whatever you're dealing with. Okay. So the company that discovered that was a pharmaceutical company called Carrington Laboratories. And they also found that this molecule is labile, which means that when you pick the leaf, it's only in its structure for 24 hours, and then it completely denatures. So they made that discovery. They found a way to stabilize the molecule for the very first time and filed patents on that process. Then they filed patents on the use. Okay, they knew that not all of the molecular weights would bind to the immune cell. In those days, they just didn't know which ones would. And so what they did is they just stabilized them all, freeze-dried it, and that was our original product. I licensed exclusively from the pharmaceutical company to bring to market as a dietary supplement because it is a nutrient, not a drug. And so we brought it into the marketplace, and then we combined it with other glyconutrients, and that's the product that you're talking about. About 20 years after I launched that technology, Nikki, some science came out from South Korea. And a group of research pharmacologists actually broke down the Acemannan into, 50,000 Dalton increments. That's the unit of measurement. So all the way up to 5 million Daltons, which is how big they get. To look for the sweet spot. In other words, at 50,000, at 5,000, at 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, which one's actually bound? And they actually determined where the sweet spot was that caused the response. And so once that was published in an international journal of immunology, the man that makes our product, who, by the way, made our first product, Dr. Santiago Rodriguez, he worked for Carrington Labs and made our first generation product, went back into the lab, and the way he processed it, he elevates the level of those smaller chain polysaccharides that actually cause the immune system response. And so there's 4 times more of those fractions per gram than within our original product, which, by the way, saved lives of people all over the planet. So it's just a much better version of the original technology.
And I would agree. We are seeing faster results with less product. And I thank you. That is my portion of this. And I'm going to hand it to Misty, my
Thanks.
sister.
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Misti.
Long time no see, right?
About 3 days or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you answered some of the questions already that I was going to ask. So I'm gonna ask kind of a feeler question.
Yeah.
So going all the way back to the beginning,
Yeah.
and with Linda's book, and she explains all the divine things that happened to help you guys, get where you started the first version that we had, the first company. When did you realize? Because I remember when we got started, I read Linda's book and I was just blown away. I told you that the other night. And then there was a second book that I read that was written by a mutual friend of ours that we all have, and he was writing it more on building the business side, what was happening in the business. And the miracles that started happening, the way that book was written, it was like, my grandma just got out of a wheelchair. What the heck is this stuff?
Yeah. Right.
Right? So when did you realize that you had something as profound as what we know it is now?
Okay, so let me just start with this. In 1993, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, started and sold businesses, and mainly in the energy field. And we were relatively new Christians at the time. And my wife said, I think we need to dedicate everything in our lives to serving the Lord. And I think we need to pray about a kingdom business, something that would go beyond just benefiting us and just let God lead us into a new business. And we were praying about that. And she said, you know what? God just laid on my heart. He's going to bless us with a Joseph Company of provision that will touch the lives of people in all nations. And I had no idea what that meant. I mean, a Joseph Company, is that a ministry? Is it a for-profit? I didn't know. A few months later, I was introduced to Carrington Laboratories. So they had made this incredible discovery of Acemannan. Their goal was to bring it to market as a drug. In fact, the first use patent that was issued by the U.S. Patent Office said Acemannan is shown to be effective in the treatment of conditions that require immune system intervention for their resolution. And you ask yourself, what conditions are those? And the answer is all of them. There is nothing that can't heal without the immune system. It's the one thing modern medicine can't replicate, is the power of the human immune system and body to heal itself. And yet here's the molecule in nature that actually optimized that response. And they thought, we discovered the second coming of penicillin. And they were just for sure that they would bring it to market as a drug. And that's another part of the story that I'm going to go into. But the FDA rejected their application for the simple reason they couldn't prove toxicity. All drugs are toxic, and you can't get into the market unless you show the toxic level that will kill a mouse. Well, Acemannan's a polysaccharide. It won't kill a mouse. It won't kill anything. And so the FDA used that as the reason to reject. Anyway, so that's when I was introduced to Carrington Labs. And I was introduced because it was a unique, disruptive technology. And that has sort of been my background. Your parents were in a business with me that
Yes.
did that. And so that's how I got introduced to them. And I looked at this technology and I talked to the doctors and I listened to the stories and I thought, this could touch the lives of people in all nations of the world. I mean, this may be the single most important discovery in modern healthcare. It's just that it's not going to get to market through the system because the drug industry is not going to let it in. It's too disruptive. And so you're going to have to create some sort of a movement outside of the current sick care industry to educate consumers on the value of this technology. And so I came home and I talked to Linda about it and I said, that Joseph Company of provision, I think I might have found the technology that will drive it. And I told her all about Acemannan. And I'll just tell you one quick story because this is what really confirmed it for me. The pharmacologist that discovered it was a man named Dr. Bill McAnally. And to make a drug application, you have to identify the structure of your molecule that you want to make a drug. Carbohydrates are the most complex molecules in nature because they're made of hexose, pentose molecules that go off in multiple directions. And so structuring a carbohydrate is almost impossible. At the time, it was only being taught at one university in the world, that was Oxford. And so Bill discovers this molecule, Dr. McAnally, and he goes to make application, and he realizes he has to identify the structure of Acemannan. And so he said, I went home and I talked to my wife about it, and we just prayed. And we just said, God, if you want us to bring this to market, you're going to have to help, because I don't know how to structure a carbohydrate. It's nothing we've ever done in pharmacology. And so the next Saturday, he was at his lab, and pouring rainstorm, and there's a loud pounding at the door. And he answers the door, and it's the UPS driver. And he's got this little bitty short guy from Africa with him. And he said, Dr. McAnally, this gentleman needs you to use your phone. He was going for a job interview, and the cab dropped him off at the wrong building. He needs to call a cab and go to the right building. And Dr. McAnally, he was the only one there that day, said, yeah, come on in. He said, where are you trying to go? He said, I'm going to Abbott Labs. And Bill said, well, I used to work at Abbott Labs. What are you applying for a job? What kind of job? He said, well, I'm applying for quality control engineer because I can't find a job with my degree. He said, what's your degree? He said, I just graduated from Oxford with a degree in carbohydrate structuring. And so he hired him on the spot.
Amazing.
So I thought, wait a minute. There are God stories that are starting to line up here. This has got to be the technology that we were meant to bring to market.
Mhm.
And that's when I kind of knew that that's what we needed to do.
Right. That's amazing. Okay. So, fast forward, tell us the story when, if I remember the story right, there was a woman that came to your church from Africa. Is that right? And she was reporting on what you talked about earlier about the children that she would lose maybe 20 or 30 a year in her particular orphanages. Will you kind of tell that story briefly, and why the orphans have such a deep place in Linda and in your hearts, where this is just,
Sure.
this is, we know that it's also for our benefit, but we also know it's for the fragile children of the world. And
Well,
how
in the
did that
late,
become so important to you? Go
yeah,
ahead, please.
in the late 1990s, we decided that we would build our family through adoption, and that we would adopt all of our children. And so we had already been working with orphanage organizations around the world, financially supporting them. And so about this time, and I started the distribution of Acemannan in 1994. This is 1997, just 3 years into it. And I was talking to the head caregiver in Romania, where the orphanage was. And I said, so what's your biggest problem? What can we help you with? That you're not getting help with right now. She goes, well, I don't know if you can help or not. Our biggest problem is the health of our children. They're sick all the time. Poor nutrition, poor sanitation, lots of stress, highly susceptible to every kind of chronic and infectious disease. And so our kids get sick, and a lot of times they just don't get better. We lose 30 to 40 children a year. And that's our biggest problem. And I said, you have no idea what I do, but I have got a technology that will radically impact the quality of life of your children. And so I explained Acemannan and what it did. And I said, I'm going to send you enough for a year. And I just want you to put it in the food that you're already providing the children. I don't care what the quality of the food is. They don't have to swallow a pill. You don't have to change their diets. Just do whatever you're doing and just add this to it. And so the end of the year came and we reconnected, and she said, you're not going to believe what's happened to our children. We are, sorry, somebody's trying to call me. She said, our kids are healthier than we have ever seen them. And for the first time in over a decade, not one child died in our orphanage. And she said, everybody that's heard our story wants to know, how can they get access to this incredible magic white powder?
Mm-hmm.
And so I came home from that, and that's when we decided, well, how do we facilitate that? And that's when we created Manna Relief and founded it in 1999.
Right. Okay. I love it. Okay. I've got two more questions.
Sure.
Tell us, what is the difference? We have Vericel now. And I asked you at dinner the other night, and you told me, you know, it was very, very similar to the first version that we had in the previous company that you founded.
Yeah.
But just you know, we have the stronger Acemannan. What makes Vericel different than not only the former, and we know it's 4 times stronger, maybe go into that a little bit more. And then also, what makes it different than anything else out there that claims to be a glyconutrient, or why is Vericel different?
Well, okay, the original company that I created is still in business, by the way.
Right.
When I found out about buy one, give one social entrepreneurship, I wanted to convert my company into a social business. But I'd taken my company public in 1999. And when you take your company public, your board of directors is only obligated to one thing, and that's called shareholder equity. So every penny that you make has to be accounted for. It's either have to be reinvested in growth or shared as a dividend. And so I soon found out that nourishing kids and shareholder equity live on two different planets. And that was sort of D-Day in our lives. And, you know, we decided we could live happily ever after. We had a great company. It was going well. Or we could start all over again. And that's what we decided to do, to start building social entrepreneur organizations that could help us meet the needs of kids. Okay, they still have their glyconutrient product. It's their number one selling product, but they have the original Acemannan technology. So the big difference is the quality of the Acemannan. You know, again, if it's got 4 times more immune optimizing fractions of Acemannan per gram, what that means is that you can take 4 times less and get the same immune response, or take the same amount and get 4 times better immune response. And we have seen over the years, through all the science and research that we've done, that there is a dose response. And so taking or getting more of those fractions actually is important. And sometimes people double or triple up on their product if their health is really challenged, because they don't have a normal immune system anymore. They've got a compromised immune system. If
Right.
someone's sick, they're sick because their immune system stopped having the capacity to recognize what was wrong and fix it. Because the human body heals itself.
Right.
You say of what? Everything. And so when it doesn't, it's because of compromised immunity. So the only answer I can give you to your question is, I mean, all the other polysaccharides with all the other sugars, it's basically just providing the glyconutrients, the sugars, and that's important. But anybody can do that. What no one else can do is provide the Acemannan. So you not only get the mannose for cell-to-cell communication, but you get it in the form of Acemannan and the fractions that actually optimize the immune system's response to whatever your body is trying to deal with. That's the difference.
Okay. I know what you're saying when you say that,
Okay.
because I've been a part of the former company and I saw what the former one did.
Yeah.
We're just a month into the launch here. So in your just layman's terms, you know how much stronger this is. You know what the former one did. What does that mean for us?
Well, I mean, I can tell you because I'm doing it at Manna Relief. You'll see things happen faster and more effectively than ever before. Because I think the amount per serving is pretty close to what we had in the original formula, like 200. No, it's 2 grams per serving, and 200 milligrams per serving of Acemannan. So all that's relatively the same. The big difference is the quality of the Acemannan. It's just got 4 times more immune optimizing fractions. And I can't describe to you how important that is for people that are struggling to try to maintain
Yes.
or to regain a quality of life. I mean, it's the one thing that medicine can't replicate is the capacity for the body to heal itself. And that's why I work with leading immunotherapists around the country. Immunotherapy is the new form of treatment for cancer. And what they do is they find out where the immune system is broken down and the ability to recognize and kill the cancer, and they try to manipulate that, through what they call immunotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And it came from the recognition that nothing more effectively or safely fights cancer than the human immune system. Nothing. And so if they can find a way to enhance the immune system's response to the cancer, that's what they try to do. Monoclonal antibodies, for instance, is a form of immunotherapy. And what the leading immunotherapist in the country is now doing is using our Acemannan as a support mechanism, an integrative support for immunotherapy. Because there's more than one mechanism of action at work when the immune system is functioning. And what Acemannan does is it optimizes them all. And so it's the best support for immunotherapy that you could possibly imagine.
Awesome. I love those answers. Okay, I think, let's see what time it is. Okay, I've got I'm going to add a couple more questions, 'cause I think we have a few extra minutes before I ask my last question. And these are some that just we hear a lot. So can people with thyroid issues take fucoidian? Have you ever heard a problem with that? That's a question we get.
I've not heard a problem of it.
Okay. And then real quick, did you or did Dr. McAnally or Dr. Reg, did you guys coin the term Acemannan or Manos, or how did that?
No, we coined the term glyconutrient.
Okay.
Because we had to find a way to describe a sugar without using the word sugar.
Okay.
And it supported the science of glycobiology. The term Acemannan actually came from the American Chemical Society. And so when you have a new molecule, you submit it for publication, and here's the new structure. They look at it and they assign a name. Acemannan is really an abbreviation of its chemical structure. So chemically, Acemannan is an acetylated beta-1,4 mannan. So acetylated beta-mannan became Acemannan. So they just shortened it up, and that's where the name came from.
Okay, one more question. Well, I've got a couple more, but I want to throw this one in there. Real fast. Tell us a little bit about how this product stimulates the stem cells in your body.
Well, it stimulates the production of stem cells. Yeah. So what happens is when you bind to the surface of a macrophage, you're upregulating, that molecule or that cell, immune cells, function in the body. And what it does, it orchestrates defense. And so what it does is it rounds up everything that's necessary to fight whatever the condition is. It could be autoimmune, it could be degenerative, it could be gene mediated. It really doesn't matter. What form the poor health condition is in, the immune system recognizes it and goes to work to support it. So several years ago, we did a study at University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, and it was on severe Alzheimer's patients. And all that we were looking for is, could we produce a better quality of life for these severe patients through immune system optimization? And it worked. And not only did it work, they started remembering things before. And the Dr. John Lewis, who was at University of Miami Miller School of Medicine, who was the lead researcher on the project, said, we've never seen anything like this before. Mm-hmm. And so what he did is he went back into the blood because they took blood samples at the beginning and then in the meeting, throughout the months. It was a year-long study to see what biomarkers were being changed. And one of the key biomarkers was the production of stem cells. So, Alzheimer's is a neurological condition. Neurons are dying in the brain for whatever the reasons are associated with Alzheimer's or dementia or any other condition like that. And so what was the body's response? The body's response was, as part of meeting the demand, it upregulated the production and the proliferation of stem cells that can then migrate to the brain and create new neurons. Mm-hmm. And it increased the production of stem cells in that particular condition by up to 400%.
Wow. Okay, so that's why I remember stories of. I remember a particular story. It was an article that we would pass out about a former doctor in Canada that had a stroke, and had I think 13 or 14 years, had some really low quality of life, and saw such tremendous improvement. If I remember that story, are you remembering what I'm talking about? Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
Dr. Olmachek.
Yes. And
Right.
didn't he go back to practicing medicine, if I remember? I
He
thought,
got back to the place where he could practice medicine, but
okay.
he was so overwhelmed with the response to the glyconutrient blend with the Acemannan that he chose to champion that
Right.
as
Okay,
his
that's
cause
right. Yes.
versus medicine.
Yes. So the stem cells, okay, so we've got someone on here asking about spinal cord injuries. Do you remember any testimonies about that?
I don't. That's a really difficult challenge. I mean, because no, I don't.
Okay.
I could
Okay.
explain why, but that's a long answer.
Okay. All right. Okay, the last question.
But let me just say this,
Okay.
because this is really interesting. One of the things that really surprised us is gene mediated or chromosome disorders like cystic fibrosis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you wouldn't think that a dietary supplement would play any role in that at all. And it doesn't fix the gene expression, but what happens with a gene expression, it goes through a series. It's like going downhill and ultimately it expresses a symptom. And so through immune system optimization, if you can break that chain someplace, you can reduce the symptom, even though the genetic disorder is still in place. It's just the response the body has to it is completely different. And so with cystic fibrosis, we started seeing kids whose lungs were clearing up. And so we met with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and did a quality of life study. Again, this is not a drug, so it's not a treatment for any disease. It's just a way of optimizing your immune system's response to that condition. And 99 out of 100 kids had significant improvement in the quality of life biomarkers that they track with these children. So when I say, what conditions fall under the category of needing immune system intervention for the resolution, the answer really is everything.
Everything. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So you founded the former company and it is still in business, but at its peak, when you were still there, we were 600, 700 million with this product, right? Am I correct on that? Yes.
We were about 500 million
Okay. And then, so
a
here
year.
we are, we haven't, we know we have a product out there that is still called the same name as what we had before, but really, truly, we have not had what we have now for 20 years. At least,
No, you've never had access to that.
right, you're right,
Uh,
with the stronger Acemannan, but with the whole glyconutrient, the 8 sugars, all of that, that's what I mean. So you know what you did the first time when that launched. And now here we are 1 month into our launch. What do you see as the possibilities that we are going to see? Like what just could we see here at Marketplace Global?
well,
Like at the beginning of launching the
yeah,
first,
I mean, I'll try to put it in just perspective instead of trying to
put
come
it
up
in
with
good
a
perspective for
number.
us, Sam.
Yeah. It's, when we started in 1994, we were really working against the grain because consumers had not come to the decision that modern medicine had all the answers yet. I mean, that's still what everybody believed. And so when you talked about the therapeutic value or potential of a dietary supplement, not many people had a true belief in that, and particularly no one in the scientific community did. But everything's changed. I mean, probably the biggest stimulator of change was COVID and what we all had to go through, with the vaccine and it saying that would reduce the risk and this. I don't care where you stand on that subject. I think what happened is a lot of people lost confidence in the fact that FDA / any other regulatory organization that gets benefit from big pharma is not above trying to force something into the population that it doesn't really need. And not only did it force things into the population, it restricted the things that really could make a difference. I think I told this story for you guys in St. Joseph. When they first discovered Acemannan and they got that first use patent, of course, they're sitting around as research pharmacologists going, let's take on the biggest problem. Let's see if it works. If everything is susceptible to being treated through this intervention, what's the one thing out there that's causing the most pain? It was AIDS in those days. And they got with the Dr. Jasbir Cologne, who was assigned by National Institutes of Health to find something that would kill the AIDS virus or slow it down. And she looked at all the oncology drugs, like 300 of them, and there was only one that worked. It was called AZT. AZT had been developed 10 years earlier for the treatment of leukemia, but it was so toxic that it never made it to market. It killed more people than leukemia. And so she did research on Acemannan cell line cultures to see if she could retard the proliferation of the spread of the virus from one cell to another. And she, in a dose response study, she found that she could absolutely reduce 100% of the proliferation of the AIDS virus. And she was like, oh my gosh. So she went to the drug czar, or the czar of AIDS, that had just been appointed at NIH, and his name was Anthony Fauci, interestingly enough. And if you ever get the book, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert Kennedy Jr., you can read all that.
Yes, I'm familiar.
But what Fauci did is he said, no, we're not going to accept anything other than a drug from a large drug company that has the potential to do the $1 billion worth of research that's going to be required to bring it to market, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that it will take to produce it and proliferate it throughout the world. And so what he did is he fast-tracked AZT to market. And that was the only approved drug for the treatment of AIDS. And so that was one of the things that stopped Acemannan in its tracks, is they chose the wrong condition to try it on. And so anyway, the perspective that I'm trying to bring is, in today's world, there is a huge openness to trying to find ways of supporting the immune system's ability to deal with poor health and chronic disease. And if it's an integrative approach, which means in conjunction with standard of care, there's more demand for that today than ever before. And so you're in a completely different environment where the consumer is, it still needs to be science-based. It can't be hocus pocus. It can't be snake oil. Consumers want to see science. Their doctors want to see science. But if you've got the science, and the good thing about Acemannan, because it came from a pharmaceutical company, there's over $100 million worth of research done on Acemannan. So there's actually some great websites to go to. Acemannanfacts.com is a repository for a lot of that data. Anyway, so I just think in today's world, you should see growth faster throughout the world than we ever experienced, because there's like a receptiveness that is 10 times higher to integrative support than there was in those days.
Wonderful. Sam, thank you so much for giving us your time. You know what I think of you. Wonderful things. So I'm going to pass it back to Karen, and I think Terry might have a couple questions for you before we close it up.
Sure.
Sam, I have one quick question. From my perspective, and I know all of my friends that will be listening to this, I would like you to tell us, the ingredients in Vericel, right? The Acemannan, the large, the organic acacia fiber, the Facodian, the the glucosamine, the rice fiber. How would we properly describe to our, people that are interested, what is that in a nutshell? Is it 8 of the glyconutrient? We know we get glucose and galactose. We want to make sure we're presenting this with integrity.
Yeah, what I would say is there's 8 sugars that are necessary for proper cell-to-cell communication and immune function. And in our product, we have all 8 or their precursors. So some of them, like N-acetylated glucosamine, the acetylation process can actually be done at the cellular level. So you may not have the N-acetylated version, but you have glucosamine. So that's a precursor. Or N-acetylated neuromanic acid, which is also thionic acid. So I would say you have all 8 or their precursors.
That is perfect. And I thank you. I thank you so much. And Terry, are you there? Terry is our main guy in this group on the Ford team. We love Karen. She's so great. And he's going to close it out.
Sure.
Maybe. He's in Mexico.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
we hear you. Thank you.
All right. I'm mobile, but what I wanted to do, guys, jump on here. Number one, thank you, Sam, so much. Thank you so much for being on here this evening and sharing your wisdom with us, sharing all your insight. Just a true blessing to be able to have you on here. Misty and Nikki, we thank you guys so much as well for, just being here and all that you've done, poured into so many different teams, so many different people, whether they're on your team or not. And that's how we roll here. We got a whole bunch of people that want to help a whole bunch of people. And at the end of the day, guys, here's what you need to understand. Sam kept going back to this. We have to, I cannot stress this enough. We have to make the body the hero. Okay? Yeah. We have to make the body the hero. God wired us. I don't know if you guys know this, but in the beginning, way back in 6,000 years ago, we were created to live eternally. These bodies that we were given to live eternally. The whole reason Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden was so that they could not reach out and take from the tree of life, because that's what was going to allow them to live forever. That tree of life shows up in Revelation. That's a whole nother conversation for a Sunday morning. But my point is, our bodies were created to be healthy and to be healthy eternally. What this body does, this body that we have that's fearfully and wonderfully made, can do all those things if we give it what it needs to do the work. And this is what Dr. Kareem has posted in there. So I see a lot of people asking these questions. Can it help this? Can it help this? Can it help that? Your body was designed to be healthy. Just know that. That's the takeaway. Your body, my body, was designed to be healthy when we give it what it needs. The challenge is we don't get those 8 sugars that Sam alluded to in our diet any longer. The processing of foods, the depletion of nutrients out of the soil, those things have affected the sugars that we need in our body, those carbohydrates, those complex carbohydrates that Sam alluded to. We don't get those every time now. And that is the issue. So every one of us have a compromised immune system. And by taking Vericel, you are going to be able to replenish all of the carbohydrates, all of the essential nutrients, let's just call it, that your body needs to be healthy. And so it's really important that we understand that. We have an amazing opportunity here, truly amazing, in that we get to go out and we get to go tell this story to people, and they can improve their health all over the globe. Why? Because we have products that allow their bodies to do what they were designed to do. So we need to go out with passion, with energy, with truth, and we want to be sure that we're compliant when we go do this, because, gang, because the one thing that can take us down is non-compliant posts. We got to be really careful when we do this. We do not want to, to kill the golden goose. We have to be able to be in business for the long term so that everybody has an opportunity here. So, Sam, again, I thank you so much for being here and for all that you've done and poured into our company, and for even giving us the opportunity to participate with the Acemannan in the Vericel product. And we are really excited about all that we have, guys. Really, truly, every one of you here, we're just truly blessed to be in that seat right now that I believe will go to a $500 million a year kind of a run rate by the end of 2027, December 2027. At least that's my mission. I'm going to work my booty off to to do everything I can to make that happen. So, Karen, back over to you, young lady.
Okay, thank you so much. Sam, thank you from the bottom of our heart. You absolutely didn't see all the comments on the side, but it was life-changing for a lot of people who joined us tonight. Misty and Nikki, you know I love y'all with all my heart. Thank you for pouring into us. Thank you for showing up all the time. And of course, none of us would be here if it wasn't for the man you just heard from, Mr. Terry and Mary Camp as well. So thank you guys for being here. Good night, everyone. We love you so much. We'll see you next Tuesday night.
No.